Hi, my name is Cadence Augustine, and for my paper and presentation, I chose the bubonic plague, or more commonly referred to as the Black Death. I wanted to explore how it started, how it changed social life, society, and the economy, and how it relates to the current pandemic we are going through, COVID-19. The Black Death is one of the most notorious and deadly pandemics in all of history. It lasted 4 years, from 1348 until 1351. In those 4 years, it killed 1/3 of Europe's population. To put that into more relatable perspectives, it's roughly equivalent to the total population of 13 states on the east coast of the United States. It killed with no preference and left nothing but death and destruction in its wake. Historians have been able to determine that the Black Death was an infectious fever that spread from person to person. It started in Asia and moved to Europe. Things such as the Mongol conquest and trade helped it spread. It was also spread by fleas that could be found on animals such as rats, pigs, sheep, goats, dogs, cats. Once a person was bit by one of these fleas, they got the plague, and they had a very slim chance of survival. Once the person started getting symptoms of the Black Death, they had about 12 hours to live. The Black Death caused many societal and social changes. Some of the biggest were that people began abandoning their families and friends by fleeing cities, towns, and villages. If you walked through during this time, you would find ghost towns, basically. Because of this, the social structure began to change, and also social mobility now occurred. The lower population meant that people on the lower end of the social scale could now rise up higher and gain more social popularity, I guess. They could just move from the lower end of the scale to the higher end of the scale, basically. So towns and cities were being abandoned, and families were being ripped apart by either death or by moving from each other. People during this time feared for their life because they had no clue what was going on. They believed that the Black Death was a curse or a poison or something that came from God. Besides severely harming social life and society, the Black Death also hurt the economy. Like any pandemic, the economy is always going to be hit the hardest. During this time, peasants could now bargain for better wages because the lords needed more workers to fill their lands. Even though there is a higher need for workers and a lower population, these peasants often still weren't able to buy goods such as food because the prices rose heavily. Fields and farms were being abandoned and they couldn't be harvested, and because of this, so much food went to waste. And now, since there was a lower population and even a lower amount of food, that caused inflation and the prices heavily rose. So only lords and those who had a lot of money could really afford the food and the other goods. And because of this, the social structure also changed because some of the peasants who bargained for better wages could now make more money. Most didn't, but the lucky few of the peasants who were able to get more money by bargaining for work, they were able to move up higher in the scale and gain more fame, I guess. So the economy, social life, and society were definitely impacted by the Black Death. People had no clue what was happening, and they basically just did whatever they could to survive. So those are some of the biggest consequences of the Black Death and some of the biggest changes it caused. In terms of how it relates to COVID-19, even though the Black Death and COVID are two total opposite diseases, they have some similarities. Besides being major pandemics that heavily impacted the world, they have similarities such as how they spread and similar symptoms. So both COVID-19 and the Black Death are spread by person to person. Even though the Black Death was spread by fleas, it could still be spread from person to person. And some major symptoms that they both share is fever and headache. The most well-known symptom of the Black Death is huge black bubbles, which is where it gets its name from. It's like huge black bubbles on a person, but the similarities that it shared were fever and headache. From these similarities and changes that the Black Death caused, we learn a lot about the current pandemic we're going through. It has taught us what we can do to stop the spread, how we can help each other through it, and how it can potentially harm and hurt the economy. Because of this, we are better prepared for this pandemic than people were years and years ago with the Black Death. So the Black Death caused a lot of harm and damage. It set Europe back about 150 years. All those advancements and improvements that had occurred were now gone. People who survived were left to deal with everything that was left. They had to deal with the death of family members, the death of friends, a harmed economy, less food, and other stuff like that. Even though the Black Death did cause a lot of harm, it set a good foundation for the Italian Renaissance. And from the Italian Renaissance, the Black Death it basically ceased to exist now, but society and the economy got a little bit better with the Italian Renaissance, which was a good thing for sure. But, so the Black Death definitely had a lot of negative impacts, but it also had some positive impacts, like the Italian Renaissance and the start of it. It marked a huge turning point in history, and it will never be forgotten. It's important to study things like these because it shows us what could happen in the future and how we could prevent it, like how it relates to COVID. It shows us that even though bad things may happen, good things can come out of it. And the main reason I chose to do my paper on the bubonic plague was because I thought it would be a very interesting topic, and I really wanted to see how it could relate to COVID. This allows me to better understand society currently, and it allows people to see how to overcome major pandemics like this. Thanks for watching.